Yeah, they can, and I mean, all of these spaces have the danger of becoming, as they become more and more visible and established, of becoming, it's kind of teenage vocabulary to say the establishment, but they can they might become less interesting. Um, but uh, but there are spaces. I mean, in this new not edition, but the new the six essays that have been uploaded to the website today, and to do with professionalization. One of the essays is by Nikhil Saval, who is who came to Delhi and Calcutta in 2016 to take part in the symposium, and he's one of the co-founders. Co-editors. He used to be one of the co-editors of N plus one. So they decided in 2004, I think, that they would start N plus one because, what interested me about N plus one, which is why I invited Nikhil and been in touch with them and I write for them as well, was that they presented a slightly different path, one that I was already exploring in the 90s and in the early 2000s, which had to do with the fact that I have a PhD, but I'm not going to become a teacher. I took up this position. I took up my first job in 2006 at the University of East Anglia, but until then, I did have a DPhil from Oxford, but I didn't teach. I was a full time writer, and it was possible in that at that time to be a full time writer. And But I was writing these essays, but I was kind of I was quite sure that I didn't want to write essays for academic journals, peer reviewed essays, which is why I wrote most of these for the LRB and the TLS, the ones I was talking about earlier. Um, N plus one arrived in a polarized landscape, far more polarized maybe in the US than it was in the UK, but that's because the creative writing department is so much bigger in the US than it ever became in the UK. Maybe it will become big, but in the US it's ubiquitous. It represents a different order and a different order of reality, and also there is a kind of antagonism, unspoken, by kind of hostility between the creative writers and the people in the literature departments who are quite often doing sociology, or but and the writers are doing craft. That, at least that's what I found when I was at Columbia for a term teaching there, and in 2002. So 2004, they would have arrived into that scenario where there was the NYRB, which was publishing essays, reviews about the latest edition of Faulkner, uh, as if the literature was just it. It was there. There was no problem. I mean, there were great writers, and there was literature, and then there was the critical inquiry, which said that there's no such thing, and they wouldn't publish an essay on Faulkner and his sentences. Was it possible for somebody to know what the people at the critical inquiry did and yet celebrate Faulkner's writing? And personally, I felt that yes. I mean, I was one of those people. I knew what the people at critical inquiry knew. I also respected what they knew, but I also treasured writing. And N plus one came into that kind. They fitted in over there. So it's possible for new people. Many of these people who are PhDs from major universities in the US. I think Nikhil, for instance, I think did a PhD at Stanford, and but then they didn't become academics. Maybe at that point it was economically possible for them to survive in that way as well. And so they created this space where it was possible to do those things. Now, uh, um, other spaces might narrow down. There's no saying that the TLS hasn't changed or even the LRB hasn't changed. The NYRB, can you imagine? It was the other day I was teaching students Under the Sign of Saturn by Sontag's essay on Walter Benjamin. And it's an extraordinary essay. But if you're going to that essay to find out, you find out a lot about Benjamin. But if you're going there to find out about you know um, various bits of information about him, you won't get that from that essay. Um, I out of curiosity, for the first time I looked up its publishing history. Where was it published? It was published in 1978 in the New York Review of Books. Uh, so these spaces change. The New York Review of Books would never publish an essay like that. Wouldn't have published an essay like that in 1990 or 95. It simply wouldn't have happened. They would have said, this is a wonderful essay, Susan, but we need to know a bit more about what Benjamin was doing then, and which books he wrote and what he was thinking of. If he didn't write any books, which essays, what he was thinking of when he wrote that, and all of that. You haven't put any of that over there. So those spaces do change. I'm hoping that the literary activism space, because I'm already quite advanced in years, is not going to change. I'm no longer a young person like the people who set up N+1 were. I'm hoping that I've gone too far in a particular direction. I'm now going to be 59 this year. I don't think I'm suddenly going to become different. You know, so I'm hoping this space will remain the same. But your question about whether new people can, yes, new people can come in who are learned, who want to write a particular kind of thing, find nowhere to write it. They said that just as I was talking about the conversations we were having, which had no actual space in which to have them, a recognized space. They said that we were writing things which we couldn't publish in the New Yorker or the NYRB, and so we had to create N+1 to publish them. You know, yeah, that's the way it is. But they would have been able to publish those pieces in the NYRB in 1978, most probably, which is when Sontag published her essay. Yeah.